So now I'd like to take a moment and introduce Frank, who's a senior engineer at Databricks, to walk us through a demo of how all this works in practice.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Frank. I'm the guy who's standing between Paul's great presentation and an amazing customer story that we have. I understand most of you are data engineers, or maybe you want to become a data engineer. It's a perfect location here to gain some knowledge. If you think about what is an engineer supposed to do, he's supposed to solve hard problems. Now, imagine the following. Your boss is talking to you and says, hey, couldn't you build such a system that kind of tracks what people talk about us on Twitter, about our company, about our products, and then apply some machine learning and classify those tweets into positive or negative, so we know if we have if the public image of our company is good or not so good. Now, this could apply to a sushi place in San Francisco where people tweet about the sashimi and nigiri, but it could also apply to Databricks. What I want to do in like 10 to 15 minutes together with you is build this kind of thing. So that's the target architecture. So if you're on Twitter, get out your Twitter clients, get out your phones. I need you to help me on this. It's basically what we need is like 3 big blocks. One is to tap into Twitter. I want to collect some tweets. Tweets are not big data if you think about this. It's 140, 280 characters. They're constantly produced. We expect that we process them not in real time, but in time, which is altogether is the textbook definition of streaming data. So we have to be able to work with streaming data. The idea is to just stream into a data lake, which is not a bad pattern because it decouples the whole thing from what is coming next. So it's an S3 bucket, to be honest, but we can abstract it with DBFS. It's the Databricks file system, which kind of helps me that I don't have this key value access to S3 objects, but I can just treat it as a file system, as a folder. And then we need to talk about the Delta life tables, how to ingest the data. What you will see is we have this, logically, for me, it looks like a T. We go from bronze to silver when we increase the data quality. But at the same time, there is this T part. I have another table that keeps track of the languages that we use in these tweets. And at the very end, we apply some machine learning. And probably if it's your boss, he will tell you, look, it shouldn't be too complicated, like 3 to 5 lines of Hugging Face, a transformer model, and then you classify the tweets. Sounds like boss talk, isn't it? Let's see if we can get there. So first of all, we need to get into Twitter, connect to Twitter, and get a live stream out of Twitter. That's the challenge, and this is where I need your help. I have some code. It's Python code running in a Databricks notebook. And what you need to understand is I'm using Tweepy, which is a very popular Twitter library for Python. And what you need to understand are those 2 lines. It's actually a kind of search expression, what we're looking for. So I'm looking for English and German tweets. And the keywords are Databricks, Data AI Summit, Lakehouse DLT, Data Life Tables. So remember the keywords. If you can, open your Twitter client and tweet. Now, don't tweet yet. I'll tell you a little bit more. That's my Twitter client. And remember, we want to make sure people talk in a positive way. So I say something like, DLT is amazing, and you all are a great audience. Now, we do more. We should add some emojis because the machine learning language model will also understand the emojis. That's one thing. And the other thing is, if I put a lot of colorful emojis and I ask you to do the same, it is just much easier to spot those tweets in the whole, in the whole data stream. It's a bit like printf debugging where you attach like 3 asterisks to the front to find it in your log files. I can do it on stage. Why not? OK, I'll do this. I tweet. Oh, sorry, I shouldn't tweet yet. I need to run this first. It is running, actually. So it's collecting the tweets already. So these are the tweets. Now I tweet. Are you tweeting as well? Please go for it. Add as many emojis as you can. And let's see if we can, oops, that's more a scrolling problem. There we go, where's my tweet? Can we find it? Oh, it's way down. Look at this, there it is. Isn't that great? That's streaming data live. Where are you guys? Is that you? DLT is cool with the sunglasses. Whoever did that, fantastic. Okay, so this is streaming into the data lake. It's not in the lakehouse yet. You want to go to the lakehouse, no, because you want to have all those benefits from the lakehouse, like A, like ACID transactions, to C, like C ordering. And this is what happens in the next step, in this step. So I'm doing delta life tables. And the first thing that I do here is using autoloader, like Paul explained. The super cool thing about autoloader is it infers the schema. What is coming from Twitter is really complex. It has like 40 different columns. And actually, I should map those column names to data types, and I don't want to do that. Autoloader is doing that for me, and that's fantastic. The second thing is it's only 2 lines. When I was demoing this to new hires that we had at Databricks, a guy coming from AWS told me, hey, Frank, that's cool what you show us, but you don't show us the really challenging part where you probably behind the scenes have to set up an SNS, notification service that makes the whole autoloader thing efficient. And I said, well, I'm not never doing that. That's the platform doing this for me, which brings me to multi-cloud. The same 2 lines would work on GCP and Azure as well. So I don't want to have those cloud details. I like this abstraction with autoloader. Then the next thing that you see is I create a table. It's a browse table. It's a streaming table. Because it's streaming, it will work in an incremental way. So it will remember the tweets it already read, and it will just read the tweets that happened in between the last time I triggered the pipeline and when I trigger the pipeline again. And then what you see, this is the browse table. I have another table. It's a silver table, and the silver table is based on the browse table. That's the classical pattern that we see. It's called CTAS, create table as select, and it's this create table silver as select. And now is the first time where I reduce the amount of data. Remember, I had 40 different columns in my tweets, and I reduce it. Basically, I want the text, but I'll keep some more columns. That's one thing. Now, there is another thing. If you look at this tweet, you will see some tweets which are not in English. So usually I see some German ones. Sometimes I see some Spanish ones. And they go wrong. They go wrong because the machine learning model is pre-trained, but only for English language. So what I need to do is I need to use those expectations that Paul was talking about. It's a constraint. It's pure SQL. I say, well, if the language is, I expect the language to be English. If it's not, drop the row. So now we did 2 things. We dropped some columns because we don't need them, and we're dropping rows because we don't need them. And this is to improve the data quality. Now the third table, it's not crazy important. It's the languages table where I keep track of the languages that I see and the number of tweets in this language. If I run this, if you look at the real pipeline, it should be here. It was reading like 1,000 tweets when I ran this before you all came in, and 898 made it from bronze to silver. Now those 103, they got dropped because it was the wrong language, which is improving data quality. If I run this again, what should happen is it should not read like 800 tweets, but just the amount of tweets you were doing and other people were doing while I was talking. It should work in this incremental way. So the number here should be much smaller. So it takes a while to run. It's 210 that happened in between. And now it's processing. It's trying to calculate what needs to go to silver. Out of 210, 208 go to silver. 2 are dropped. If you look at this, you get the data quality here. It's 2 are dropped. That's 1%. Well, it's not too bad. Actually, it depends on how many people tweet in different languages. If we look at bronze, you will also see those. Hang on. Those 40 different columns that I never had to map, so I didn't really care about the schema because it was auto-detected. So that's the cool thing about delta life tables. Now, This whole demo is available on GitHub. You could just grab it on GitHub. I'll show you the link in a minute, and then play with it and explore. Like I built it to explore between development and production mode, where we keep the cluster up or we shut the cluster down, between having different configurations and running pipelines triggered or in a continuous mode. And it's fantastic because it's only 3 tables to explore this. A few more things I want to point out. Those tables that I create in SQL, they obviously show up here under the Data Explorer. And then I can click on them. And for example, it tells me an interesting story. If I look at this, the JSON files that I wrote to this directory, I was running this before you came here, it's 390 files. So the irony in big data sometimes is in big data we have this too many small files problem. Now I was writing 390 files, and at some point opening all those files and reading 140 characters from a tweet, well, opening the file takes you more time than reading the real data. So having too many small files is an issue. And if I talk to my data engineering friends, they all tell me, like, we have this every single day. Now, what DLT does for you is, hang on, look at this. It's showing, where has it gone to? I don't see it anymore. It might be a screen thing. Let me reload this data, browse table. That changed anyway. Usually it shows you like it's stored. Oh, here it comes. I don't know. This is like when you do stuff live. Number of files 2. So it went down from 390 to 2. So too many small files problem is solved. Now, let's come to the result. Like, let's see what is really happening if we do the machine learning. Now, the machine learning is easy. All I do is use the transformers. I pip install them. Then I read my data again. And remember, it's just a Delta Lake table. So I read my tweets, silver, which is the processed, cleaned, transformed data. I read it, I put it to a pandas frame, and then basically I send it to that pipeline. And the pipeline is a BERT model. It's optimized for tweets. I told you it understands about these emojis and stuff. It only works for English. That's it's a poor man version of the pipeline. So I can send data to the pipeline, like a smiley face, like not good at all, like I love the lake house. If I run this, the output is the first one is positive, 92%, then it's negative, and then it's positive again. So it really understands the context, it understands smileys. This is my test data. To the real pipeline, to the sentiment pipeline, I feed the tweets as a list, and this is the output. These are the top tweets sorted by score, so the most likely positive tweets are on top. DLT rocks, you're an amazing audience. That worked pretty well. Remember your boss told you to find out about how the company is doing? That's the result that you should print out and put on the desk of your boss. So it's 100 minus 7, it's 93% are positive or neutral. That's not bad if you're this company, and this was all about Databricks, by the way. And that's the thing that you should maybe print out and stick next to the coffee machine. That's a word cloud, where you see the most frequent words in the most positive tweets, which is not bad if you look at this. So Data Summit, Databricks, DLT, this is all stuff that you guys were tweeting. All right, and that brings me to the end. I could show you the same thing running as a workflow. You see I was struggling a bit, like orchestrating between those different notebooks, and I can run this as a workflow. I'll start this while Jason is coming up on stage. So I can go to workflows. I have the same thing as a workflow. It looks like this. And you orchestrate the ingestion, the DLT, Delta Life tables, and the Hugging Face. You schedule it, you run it like every night, every morning. If you want, you schedule the ingestion in a separate workflow, keep it running whole day, and then run the machine learning just once a day, whatever. With this, I want to hand over to Jason. Thank you for your